You know that feeling when the phone rings at 6 in the morning? Ugh, I was annoyed, thinking it was just another day. But then I heard the news, and my whole world just tilted. It was about a man, a legend known simply as the Elephant Doctor. And my reaction, well, it caught me completely off guard.
It's hard to describe, but it felt like I was dissolving. Like every single cell in my body was just popping, like a bubble of foam. It was this overwhelming physical wave of emotion for a man who had absolutely changed the way I see the world. So who was he, and why did this one piece of news just break me open like this?
So, the news was that my mentor, Dr. Krishnamurthy, had just won this huge national award. And this was a big deal. So many of us had been working for it behind the scenes, because he was the kind of person who would never, ever seek that kind of recognition for himself. And as I sat there just stunned and overjoyed, my mind shot all the way back to the very first time I ever met him.
And let me tell you, it wasn't in some nice office or at a celebration. My first encounter with Dr. K was one of the most traumatic moments of my entire life. I mean, it was a scene of just absolute horror, something I will never, ever forget.
See, I was just a kid, really. A brand new forest officer, full of book smarts, but with pretty much zero real-world experience. And for my first major assignment, they tell me to go attend the post-mortem of an elephant that had been dead for days. I had absolutely no idea what I was walking into.
The first thing that hit me was the smell. And I don't just mean a bad smell. It was like a wall, a physical thing that I felt like my body had to tear through just to move. My stomach just twisted, my whole body was screaming at me. And then, through this haze of nausea, I saw him. A man, an old man, wearing boots. And he was standing calmly inside the opened, rotting carcass of this magnificent creature. He was working away with a large knife, totally absorbed in what he was doing, as if he were just standing in his workshop instead of a tomb.
As I got a little closer, I realized the floor of that carcass, it wasn't flesh. It was a living, moving sea of writhing maggots, and they were crawling up the man's legs, over his boots, and he was completely unfazed. He just casually brushed one off his arm and kept working. That was the last thing I saw before my vision went black and I fainted. Just collapsed right there.
So, yeah, that man standing in that sea of decay, the man I was so horrified by, he was the same man whose award had just brought me to tears. He was the one and only Dr. V. Krishnamurthy.
But these official accomplishments, they don't even begin to scratch the surface of who he was. To the world, he was Dr. K, a living legend. I mean, we're talking over 1,000 elephant surgeries, delivering more than 300 calves. He literally wrote the book on elephant autopsies for the entire country. His expertise was sought after from all over the globe.
But here in the forest, his reality was different. He was the same man who would treat the local tribal women for their ailments. He was the man whose jeep would be chased by laughing children, all of them shouting, "Elephant Doctor, Elephant Doctor." He was this global icon who was, first and foremost, a humble local doctor to every living thing in his care, human or animal.
For weeks after that first encounter, I actively avoided him. I was haunted by the image, by my own weakness. But the forest has a way of forcing things. And a painful, personal problem would finally push me to speak to the man I so deeply feared.
I brushed against some poisonous plant and developed this agonizingly itchy rash. My staff all insisted there's only one person to see, the Elephant Doctor. I went to him, absolutely terrified, convinced his hands were permanently unclean, remembering that gruesome scene. I was desperate for a cure, but even more desperate to just get away from him.
He must have sensed my revulsion. He looked at me, and instead of just giving me some cream, he started talking about that day, about the maggots. He offered me a completely different way of seeing things. What I saw as a symbol of death and decay, he saw as life in its most helpless, hungry form. And then he said the words that changed everything for me. He said, "The beetle is the adult. The maggot is an infant. It can't walk, it can't fly, all it knows is to eat." And then he asked me, "What is there to be repulsed by in an infant?" In that one moment, my entire worldview just shattered and began to reform. From that day on, that was it. I became his student. I spent every moment I could with him, and through his eyes, I began to learn the language of the forest. I started to see the world not as some human observer, but as a part of it. One day, we came across a pack of dholes, wild dogs, some of the forest's most efficient predators, and they were on guard. Dr. K immediately knew their leader was injured, and before I could stop him, he got out of the jeep and just walked towards them, alone. The lead dog approached him, sniffed him, assessed him, and then began to greet him like an old friend. Its body language just shifted from threat to welcome. The pack opened up and allowed him to see their fallen alpha.
As we drove away, leaving the pack to their world, Dr. K was quiet. Then he began to recite a poem by Lord Byron about the loyalty of a dog. He spoke of the purity of an animal's friendship compared to human vanity and deceit. And listening to him, thinking of that wild dog's trust, I just started to weep.
The lessons he taught me about the profound, sacred nature of the forest are more important now than ever, because the very animals he dedicated his life to protecting face a constant, thoughtless, and deadly threat.
And yet, all of Dr. K's skill, all his compassion, all his wisdom can be undone by one moment of human carelessness. A single broken bottle, tossed from a car by a tourist, can be a death sentence for an elephant.
The horror of it is in the details. An elephant's footpad is soft. When it steps on a shard of glass, its own immense weight drives the glass deep inside. Infection sets in almost immediately. Soon, the animal can't walk. It can't reach water or find food. It starves and dies in agony, all because of a piece of trash.
Dr. Krishnamurthy spent his life healing the wounds of the forest. He taught me to see life in what I thought was death, and to see nobility in creatures we just dismiss as savage. He was the forest's doctor. But looking at the constant damage we inflict, it leaves me with one final haunting question. The forest has its doctor, but who will heal us?